다음은 이 분야 세계적 권위자인 노르웨이 비즈니스 스쿨의 몰튼 후세 교수님의 기조 강연이 있겠습니다. 몰튼 후세 교수님은 가치를 창출하는 이사회, 여성 이사회 멤버, 경영의 미래에 대해서 연구하고 계십니다. 해당 분야 구글 스칼라 서치에서 상기 주제 관련 가장 많이 인용되는 학자 중 한 명일 뿐 아니라 20년간 호주, 인도, 일본, 독일 등 10여 개국 25개 대학과 연구기관에서 상기 분야 관련 연구 및 협업을 진행하고 계십니다. 노르웨이는 전 세계에서 가장 먼저 여성이사 목표제 법제화를 실시한 국가로 노르웨이 20년 경험이 이제 막 첫걸음을 떼는 우리나라에 시사하는 바가 클 것 같습니다. 지금 후세 교수님이 노르웨이에서 외부로 연결되어 있으십니다. Hello, Dr. Huse.
Hello. It's very great to be with you here today. It's midnight here in Norway, and it's a very special thing for me to join you here with you in Seoul, in Korea.
We are ready for listening your keynote speech. Please start your speech.
Women corporate directors, Royal Norwegian Embassy, thank you very much for inviting me to join here for this seminar and to let me be able to share some of the experiences from Norway, some of the lessons from Norway, and hopefully some of these experiences can be important for you in Korea. I've never been in Korea, but the Norwegian quota regulations will have some lessons, not only for Korea, but it has been a kind of a snowball that has been rolling around in many countries over the world. And it's become a kind of a global avalanche that's also been taking me to several countries where I had the experiences of learning what's happening and seeing that things are also beyond the immediate things of a quota regulation, but it's about trying to do something with gender equality and developing a sustainable society. We can get the next picture. The women on boards has been increasing very fast in many countries. And many of these developments have been coming as a direct result of the Norwegian gender quota regulation. France has a similar regulation. Germany has got something similar, while in countries like United Kingdom, it is a threat knowing that unless the objectives of getting enough women on boards are being reached, then a quota regulation would come, and thus it's been coming. I've been seeing also in other countries like India that they have been introducing a law with at least one woman on the board. Definitely it's possible to have a discussion about the impact and the consequences of it directly. But still, it's a tremendous difference from many of these countries down to the situation of Korea, where in 2019, around 3%. You can take the next picture. I've been learning from Korea that there's about 16% of female representation in parliament, 2% women on company boards. And the gender wage gap is about 37%. 20% of women quit their job after marriage, and when there are about 25 weeks paid maternity leave, while the paternity leave is 16 weeks. I will present some lessons from Norway. I will have three main points in my presentation. First, that voluntary actions did not matter. The second, about the golden skirts, and that it matters who the women are that are becoming board members. And third, that quotas are not enough. Norway is a small country. a small country that is characterized by gender and social equality. Norway used to be a poor country, so there's no big difference between the rich and the poor in Norway. There have been many in leading positions in Norway in politics and government, but in the corporate life, this has not been the case. We can see the next picture. This graph shows some of the story in Norway. We're seeing throughout the whole 1990s, the percentage of women on boards in Norway were about 5%. There were lots of activities trying to do something about it. There were people or lots of women networks that didn't accept this low percentage. There were used lots of arguments in media for the need of doing something. Research was conducted. And the only thing that made a change and increasing the percentage was that there were new companies that came on the stock exchange in 1994. During the mid-1990s, lots of voluntary actions were taking place. There were seminars about boards of directors. Mentorship programs were established, and formal education in business was also developed for women. The Norwegian government was a main actor in many of these things, and also the Norwegian industry that really tried to do something. And the Norwegian government, it was politicians together with the director of equality in Norway, developed a data bank, a register with women that really wanted to become board members, women that were presenting their CVs and were listed by the Norwegian Director of Equality, but still nothing happened. There were several thousand women in this data bank that all were seeing themselves as qualified for being board members. Politicians and the Ministry of Family and Equality then tried to find out alternatives. And they suggested different law hearings. Law hearings, first about 25% of women in all companies. A new government suggested 40% of women, but then only in the publicly tradable companies. Publicly tradable companies that are companies that have the possibility to be listed on the Oslo Stock Exchange. But even with this law proposal hearings, nothing happened. Nothing happened until February 2002, when the Minister of Industry went out into press and announced that the law would come. This was not something that was coming only from him. It was some work that's been done for several years by the Ministry of Family and the minister, even from the Prime Minister. In 2003, as was mentioned from the embassy, the law was finally proposed. However, Norwegian industry didn't like to see a law coming. They wanted to see this proposed law as a kind of a sunset law, a law that should never see the sun, but set before it came into practice. They established an activity which they called Female Future and tried to show it was possible to get a large number of women on boards with voluntary quotas and not with the formal regulations. An increase took place, but still fairly limited. The law was then finally accepted and implemented, and it resulted in gender balance on boards in Norway. Gender balance was considered to be about 40% of the board members should be of the least represented gender. We can take the next picture. I will give an example of that it matters who the women are. And I will give the example about the golden skirts. Golden skirts is a word or a concept that has been used for women that wanted to make a living out of being board members. But these women are not all the same. They are different, as all women are. And typically, there are more differences among women than there are differences between men and women. The golden skirts were a fairly limited number of women having many board memberships. Some of them contributed by being advisors to the company. They were often young, smart, and clever, and having facts on their fingertips. Some were more controllers. They were ambitious women, often with a law background or a finance background, and made sure that they were following all the codes of best practices, all the corporate governance codes. A third group of these women were the decision makers, having lots of experiences from politics, often being ministers or some of the large ministries in Norway. They were decision makers. Somebody would call them the iron fists, and they were used to fight, and they knew how to get their things through. And then final group was the value creators. That was the business experienced women, those that really were seeing the importance of doing something for the company. And as we're seeing here, even among these golden skirts, there were tremendous differences, and they had all major different contributions to how the company was working. We can go to the next picture. My third point is that quotas are not enough. We need to understand the purpose of quotas. What's the purpose? Is the main purpose of getting a gender quota on corporate board, is that to improve company performance? Yes, that was the formal argument. However, thinking about it, it is more a matter of trying to do something about gender equality. And I would say even more, the main purpose of this law and the main contribution of the law is to contribute to a sustainable society based on gender equality. It goes beyond just that of improving company performance. I would not use the business case as an argument for getting women on boards. First, the reason is that I think it's the business that need to find out how to organize their work the best themselves. Second, the second reason is that I don't really see that there is a very strong effect about this quota regulation on company performance. One thing is that it takes a long time to see some of the consequences. Another thing is that we need to understand how boards are working, and the boards are today in most countries not using their full potential. And in that way, I don't think we are seeing any big differences on getting more women on boards today, but hopefully we are seeing much more in the years to come. not only because of the women, but in general because we are learning more how boards can contribute to value creation. When thinking about or when seeing the objective of getting a sustainable society, in Norway, it was possible to get a quota regulation because we had norms and cultures that were supporting it. However, I'm seeing in many different countries around the world, a quota regulation has become because they've been learning from the Norwegian experience and the experience coming from some of the countries following Norway. And this regulation that have been coming has the consequence of changing norms and cultures in the different countries. So I'm seeing that the quota regulation or getting more women on board has a contribution to change norms and culture and may have a contribution to a sustainable society, a society that we are proud of giving further to coming generations. I've got a few questions from you, and I will try to respond to them. The first question was about dissolution. If companies do not follow the law, will there be a dissolution of the company violating the quota regulation? There have been many companies that are not anymore publicly tradable companies or companies regulated according to this form of incorporation. Many companies decided to change forms of incorporations, but no companies really needed to change incorporation. That were their own choice. And the Norwegian society, the government, decided even to create some new forms of incorporations to facilitate for those that didn't want to do it and didn't need it. For example, a new law for finance companies developed in this period. Reactions, the second question. Yes, there were reactions by many industry leaders. As I indicated, that the industry associations and industry leaders wanted to see this as a sunset law. There were also reactions among young and liberal women. They wanted to prove that they would get board positions without the support of a law. However, the law became more and more accepted in all groups. And today it's not a major point, even though there still are certain groups and certain actors that are doesn't like it. It is not a big issue in a negative way. Rather, there are many actors in Norway very positive to the law. The third question is about adverse effect, immediate adverse effect. I've already indicated that the business case, we didn't see any result in one way or another. That is, I've been arguing that there might have been an effect by changing some of the boardroom climates and bigger awareness about how boards can work, but not necessarily of the direct contribution of women, but more that the women have been making the whole boardroom climate more positive and more value creating by being there. So it's in some way, we have been seeing also that the men have been improving their performance in the boardroom. But basically, it's far too early to see any direct consequence. The fourth question is about that, of beyond gender diversity. not really that either. Norway is a fairly homogeneous country. Reality, recently it has got more attention that of getting more types of diversity. We've got some attention to culture, but not really in alternative ways of thinking. I think there is a need to get people on the boards that are thinking in alternative ways, saying in the words of the German philosophers, another types of habitus, a way of being than the same group of people that are on boards, whether they are women or men. Pandemic and climate change. Well, I could say many things there. My hope is that we will see a change in the balance between capital and labor, capital versus CSR. Women may have an impact on that, but I don't trust that it's women per se that will have the impact. I would ask whether we really need to rethink capitalism in some way, and maybe the quota regulation and women can give some input to that, but it goes beyond. We need to go beyond just thinking about a quota. There are many more things than just a quota. I'm ending now, so we can get the next picture.
칼시에도 불구하고 굉장히
I
열정적으로
will
강
thank you for the attention, and hope I will be able to join forces with you very soon. Thank you to all of you for letting me share some of the snowball effects.
새벽 1시에도 불구하고 열정적으로 강해 주신 후세 교수님께서 이렇게 조금만 더 큰 박수를 한 번 더 보내주시겠습니까? Dr. Hussain, thank you for your insightful speech. Good night. It's 1 a.m., right?
All right.
Good night. Thank you for your speech.
Thank you. Have a good day.
보실 수 있거든요. 손 한번 흔들어 주시면 좋아하실 것 같아요.